What's going on, everybody? So there are a handful of different types of people to watch out for on social media. The one that just got me fired up today is the contrarian. So the contrarian is exactly what it sounds like, is someone who, no matter what is considered conventional wisdom or normal, they have to go against it. In some capacities, to be fair, this is a good thing because it causes us to slow down, hit pause, and see, do they have a point? Where are they coming from? Is there something to what they're talking about? But when your entire page or persona is nothing but contrarian, and you offer no solutions other than the one, of course, that you offer, that is, you got to pay a lot of money for, and it becomes kind of a gimmick, and I begin to question quite a bit about, have you actually worked with anybody before? Have you actually gotten results for people? Or are you just doing some weird shit that you claim works and putting it out there is effective? Anyway, and for some reason, people seem to think that the more obscure something is, the more valid it must be. And that's, I would actually argue the complete opposite. Is the less sexy it is, the more boring it is, the more likely it is to work very, very well. In fact, I was talking with a guy yesterday who's has a substantial amount of money, a pretty successful investor, and I was asking him about, what vehicles does he use for investing. He's like, man, it's just fucking boring. That's all there is to it. And the same thing goes for sensible strength training. It's not all this elaborate stuff. It's not all these sophisticated, fancy looking exercises. A lot of it, in some capacity, is going to be derivatives of snatching, clean and jerking, squats, deadlifts, vertical pushing, vertical pulling, horizontal pushing, horizontal pulling, some single leg stuff, and some carries, and then conditioning. And the amounts that you do and all that stuff, yeah, cool, we can talk programming and all that, but as long as you understand the basic principles and you can legitimately validate why you're doing something with somebody, great. There's a ton of different methods by which we can accomplish X, Y, Z or goal, but that's the bulk of it, really. Anyway, a big part of what I would consider being a successful coach and getting really good results with especially the tactical population, rather we're talking guys at the schoolhouse like the one that I'm at, where they're on a high tempo, sometimes they're deploying, they're on TDYs, they have a lot of different things going on. Or if we're talking police or fire or whatever, the biggest thing to establish first is frequency. We've got to get people excited about coming in and basically checking those boxes at least once a week. That's our first metric we're trying to get to. Before we even talk about, how elaborate the programming needs to be, what exercises they're doing, all of that stuff, it needs to be, hey, let's just focus on getting all of those boxes checked once a week, whether it's in a single session or a multiple sessions, whatever it is. That's what we're focused on. Then once they can establish increased frequency, then we can talk about what we're going to do to manipulate the load, what kind of velocity we're going to look at, things like that. But the big thing I was talking to a guy about the other day is it really comes down to three primary methods that you're going to use when you're training. Because a large part of it is, coaching is people. Like you have to be good with people. You have to understand, and you have to be able to read people. Basically, you just have to give a shit and genuinely care about people if you want to be a successful coach. So it comes down to actually remembering people's names, knowing stuff about them, knowing what's going on in their personal lives. And the more someone gets to know, like, and trust you, the more they're going to disclose. And that's good because that gives you some insight into what would be most appropriate for their training for the day. And yes, we have a bigger block of training that we would ideally like to hit. But again, as I just mentioned, a lot of these guys, they could be deployed. They could be TDY for a certain amount of time. So it's not always going to fit into this nice, fancy periodization model that we want. But anyway, this guy comes in, and I can just read him right away. He's normally a bright-eyed dude and lots of energy, and he's just like, man, his eyes are kind of down a little bit. He's just like, man, I don't even want to be here today. It's like, okay, that's fine, man. Let's just knock out a bro session, right? Because sometimes there's something to be said for just hitting a good old-fashioned bro session where it's just arms, abs, calves, and just have fun. That's all we're focused on. And that facilitated a little bit of recovery, but it, obviously elevated his mood. He was glad he came in and did something. Was it ideal? Could it have been better? Absolutely. But in this situation, that's what we were trying to target. So the three primary methods that we look at rotating, and I explained this to him, is when you come into the gym, we're going to have a me, a D, or a re. Okay, so that's M-E, D-E, or R-E. So all that means is max effort, dynamic effort, repetition effort. That's it. So I explained to him that every single day, you're going to finish off your sessions with repetition effort. That repetition effort is either going to be heavy, or it's going to be light, or it's going to be moderate. And there's rep ranges that we can get into and all that stuff. But at the front end, once you start warming up, getting loose, just pick either DE or ME. So do you want to move fast? Do you want to be Ricky Bobby today? And I want to go fast and focus on that aspect? Or do you want to move like, hey, I just want to move weight. I want to move some heavy stuff with pretty damn good technique and move it very heavy. That's what I mean when I say max effort. Is we're not necessarily doing a true absolute max, but we're focused on the strain. We're focused on putting in, an 8 out of 10 difficulty for a handful of singles or doubles, and then we just move along with our day. So that's really all there is to it. So when we train, and that's a gross oversimplification, I know that. But for my purposes, for the guys that I'm working with, I need to be able to explain this to them simply, quickly, and why it's relevant to them. So that checked all those boxes with this guy, and he goes, oh, okay. And it's like the light bulb just went off in his mind when we were talking about this. So I watched him come in the gym today, crushed it, had a great workout, and I watched him go through the training, and he just checked the boxes. Do I want to go fast or do I want to go heavy? Okay, great. Knock that out for a handful of sets. And then repetition work. Do you want some heavier repetition work, or do you want to go a little bit lighter, very high volume repetition work? And that's all we're doing. We're just manipulating those variables, those methods throughout the week at a minimum of once. Ideally, we're doing 2 times, potentially 3 times. But you got to remember, especially when we're talking tactical, police, fire, they do not have a normal schedule. They have a lot of continuing stuff going on. Their stress is sky high, and the recovery is generally not where it should be. Sleep is not where it should be. So we have to take all that into consideration when we're looking at, what type of elaborate programming and tools and toys do we want to use. really it's just coming down to getting people to move better, feel better, and then that will naturally increase their performance. We don't need to do all this fancy stuff that I keep seeing and from all these contrarians. So anyway, check out dynamichp.net. If you have questions or you're interested in coaching, drop me an email, travis@dhpcoaching.net. Talk to you soon.